Thank you guys for showing up. I got here at 9 and I was a little worried. Saw me and Ski and we're like, I was like, okay. But I'm happy to be with you guys here today. My name is Mark Tinus. I'm the founder of a company called Simple Times Mixers. We do cocktail mixers. We're in the food and beverage space. This will be an interesting presentation for me because our company is actually about 5.5 years old. We started in 2017, and it's expanded pretty gradually throughout, and I'll kind of get into that. So I've probably presented Simple Times, as most entrepreneurs will tell you, about 1,000, 2,000 times in every single environment, raising money, capital, to bank meetings, to sitting in front of all y'all here. So first and foremost, thanks to 1MillionCups, because when I was getting my ventures started, first one in 2014, then the second one in 2016, things like this were few and far between. So it was really difficult to get in front of people and practice these types of things where you get really fluid in your story and meet other folks that are in the entrepreneurial community. I think back then it was basically Wake Up Startup and Startup Week. And those were the two things that you did. I presented at all those. And Simple Times actually was an offshoot idea to my first venture, which I'll talk about 5.5 years ago when I presented that. So now this is going to be an interesting presentation because I'm going to tell you through Simple Times. And then a new company that I just named last night as I was building this presentation, Waste Not Processing Co., which is going to be something that's an offshoot, an opportunity within our organization, and we're still a little bit half-baked in the concept, if it's going to be a subsidiary of our current business, is it going to be a complete branch off, so on and so forth, but I'll talk you through what all that means. Before I get into Simple Times, a little bit about me. I've worked in the food or in the alcohol space actually since I got out of college at Ohio State in 2004. So I was a brewmaster for Anheuser-Busch. I moved out to New York and was running their Newark, New Jersey brewery. I went back to grad school in New York and then started consulting for companies like Bacardi, Heineken, all on the sales and marketing side of things. And then I took over the marketing group for Central America, South America, Caribbean markets for Heineken back in 2012 and ran that group for about 3 years when I decided to jump out, leave wonderful corporate America 11 years in and start a spirits business. So I actually started a spirits business, little known. It's called Karate Cowboy. It was a sake fusion product. We were bringing kind of international fusion, American white whiskey with Japanese sake. It was very interesting and different, and actually like now 7 years later the sake industry is booming like crazy, which shows you kind of ill timing sometimes, but also learn your lumps as you go through it. And it probably took me until 2 years ago that I started classifying that as my first failure, but it's okay as an entrepreneur to say something's a failure because it led you to something different, right? And you just keep slugging along. The opportunity to hit on your first ride is very small, right? And so this led us to here. So my background in spirits, beer, alcohol industry led me to an issue. I had a very unique spirit product. Most spirits are sold through cocktails. So when you go out to bars, unique cocktail blends, so on and so forth. You go to craft cocktail bars. They're very difficult to make, right? And so the issue as a spirits company, craft spirits company, was very different than beer and wine. Beer and wine, if you could open a can, if you could uncork a bottle, you could enjoy what you had at the restaurant at home. Spirits companies have a very difficult challenge, which is we got to give you a recipe card, we got to educate you how to make it, we got to get you to get over the intimidation barrier of making a cocktail at home. And so I created Simple Times actually as a service industry business to help bars and restaurants make craft cocktails with this very confusing spirits product. And once we got it off the ground, about a month later, our mixer business outsold our spirits company that had existed for 3 years. And my wife finally smacked me in the head and said, stop thinking like you're a spirits company, start thinking like you're a mixer company. We did, we shedded the liquor company a year later and then grew Simple Times. And so this is our product. If you've seen it out and about, we do farmers markets around the area. We're very we call it farm kitchen glass. We're very farm to glass. Everything we do is inspired by a time when real ingredients were the only option. That's kind of our ethos. That's what Simple Times stands for. Simple to make, but Simple Times as an homage to when things actually were what they were, right? Like strawberries were strawberries. They weren't natural flavors. right? So that's what we push on. Our mission is empowering everyone to make the highest quality craft cocktails. And that's, every word has been scrutinized in our organization. Empowerment is not necessarily the overall empowerment piece, right? It's empowerment because there's an intimidation factor to making cocktails at home. And so we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable doing it. You don't have to spend $15 at a craft cocktail bar. You can get these at home and make them for $1.50, right? And share them with your friends. Very communal, very social, very inclusive. Even down to our pack size, right? We do a 32-ounce pack size, which makes 8 cocktails. The whole point is that you're getting this at home and you're sharing it with your friends, right? So we've done smaller SKU size. We didn't want to do individual serve. We wanted to make this all about the community and communal side of it. So a lot of thought went into the creation of this product. Where we came from as an insight and why we created the business was, I've worked in the industry for now 2 decades. And the reality is folks always focused in the mixer category. Actually, I always call it ran the mixer category through the mud, because they either made convenient products that sucked, to be honest with you. Think neon green Jose Cuervo margarita mix, think 40 grams of sugar per serving, think everything on a label that you don't understand. That was what convenience was in the cocktail mixer category. And then you had quality, which I never shy away from. There's awesome shrub companies, awesome simple syrup companies, awesome, what I call very high quality ingredient companies, but you're still gonna need some know-how how to use a shrub, or how to use, if you're not even familiar with the shrub, vinegar-based, mixer items. And so the authentic piece was also hard, because contract manufacturing has taken over the world. And so anybody who had a concept was going to basically 4 or 5 of these gigantic contract manufacturers and then pushing these products out, right? So the manufacturing side had to grow up for the clean label community to come to life. And so that was where we came in. We said, look, I had done it. I'd started a spirits brand without a distillery. I contract manufactured with another organization. This venture I was super passionate about because I wanted to build it from the ground up. I wanted to own the manufacturing, I wanted to own the quality. And we'll get into that as we grew as an organization to where we were in a communal shared kitchen space at 1,400 Food Labs, to now our 15,000 square foot facility out in Gahanna. That all happened in 5 years. From Googling how to start a food business to now we have this thing, right, that we have to figure out what to do with. So that authenticity story was super important to me, because I saw that was just lacking in the food space as a whole, and something that people wanted when they're looking at their products, whether that be pasta sauces or cocktail mixers. So we fit right here. Right? So we wanted all of it. And we really haven't wavered from that as a philosophy. I'm gonna blow through this because I kind of talk through it all the time. Our product is shelf stable. It's all real ingredient. You flip the bottle over, our strawberry lemonade is strawberry, lemons, organic cane sugar, water, period. And we process everything in-house at our facility. Everything comes in as whole fruit. So if you come to our facility, I'll have a slide that shows it. It's whole pineapples showing up by the pallet. It's whole lemons showing up by the pallet. And that's super important to quality because it's called single processing. So in the food industry, you've got secondary processors, right? So somebody that gets a bunch of lemons, they juice it their way. You don't control that quality. They have to treat it, usually meaning heat pasteurizing it, and then they send it to you. And then you're pasteurizing it a second time. So secondary processing is basically like giving your juice 2 punches in the face instead of 1 punch in the face, right? And so it degrades the quality of the product throughout. So we're one of the few single processors in the country that actually bring in whole fruit, process it once, treat it once, and then ship it out the door. So really, really high intense focus on quality, small batch pasteurization. That's how we control time and temperature and really work through the shelf stability and shelf life component of our product, but keep it as fresh and tasty as possible. But this plays a bunch of benefits. We've got 9 months shelf life, shelf stable. So if you think of cocktail mixers, the only people that really compete with us in the clean label department are refrigerated products. And if you think about where you shelf in the retail side of things, you want to be close to liquor, right? Because you're mixing with liquor. So not a lot of people are like, let me head over to the refrigerated section of the grocery and then come back over and grab that bottle of Tito's or Middle West or whatever, right? So this was all part of our retail strategy when we first started. Farmers markets was ensure shelf stability, ensure long shelf life, If you are buying that 8 cocktail serving, can you put it in the fridge and store it for 4 weeks after so that you don't have to wolf it down in one sitting, which was other competitors of ours like Cocktail Courier and things like that, were basically single use and then you throw it away if you don't use it. So that's a bit of the product and benefit side of our product. This is our production facility. Literally everything is hand done. This is the zest. We do 3,000 pounds of that zest every January that we use for our margaritas. We hot steep in organic cane sugar, anything from sage to rosemary to basil. We work with local farms on sourcing our blackberries, and strawberries, and apple ciders, and things like that. We work with over 32 different ingredients. So we're like Shark Tank's nightmare from a complexity perspective, right? Whenever you hear them stand up there and say, focus on one product, focus on this, we said, screw that. We're gonna do everything, and we're gonna do it successfully, and we're gonna do it with a lot of hard work. And that's the way we've done it. We now have created over 80 different SKUs from recipes perspective, using these 31 different ingredients. And so we're now, I will say, in Shark Tank's defense, we are now paring down where our retail focus is 6 flavors, retail centric, national footprint. And so that small SKU set will represent a large portion of our revenue. This is our ethos. We've stayed very close to this: real ingredients, real simple, real people. We call it our 3 reals. It's posted everywhere in our facility. We do nothing but use real ingredients in our product, fresh ingredients, quality focused, local source if we can, real simple. All those 81 different recipes I talked about are all 3-to-1 with spirits or soda water. We don't divert from that at all. Our margarita mix, which typically you gotta add triple sec and tequila, is tequila only. So no matter what we make with whatever setting, bar, restaurant, consumer, whatever, has stayed 3-to-1. And that was a bit of my PTSD around handing out recipe cards and people throwing them away right in front of me to where we are today, right? So that was a huge focus of what we are, and then real people. So I mean, this is literally Steve Hirsch, who runs Hirsch Fruit Farms out in Chillicothe. And then we've got farms in Circleville with Brett Rose and his family. Every farm we work with, we individually meet the farmers. We understand their process. We want to build their business just like we build our business, which is a huge part of who we are. This is our company. I'm not going to get on this too much, but obviously it focuses on our footprint. So just as 1 Million Cups just said there was changes around COVID, damn sure that every company has changes around COVID, right? So we had the same thing. So we started this entire business 2017. It was me and my sales guy from my spirits venture, and we did nothing but farmers markets. So it was 10 farmers markets. It was 3 of us employees running around. We would literally make a batch, 40 bottles. We'd go out to a farmer's market, we'd sell it. We'd go back to the kitchen, we'd make 50 bottles. We'd go out to a market, we'd sell it. It's time consuming and difficult, but it served a huge purpose for us, which was get consumers, we call it liquid to lips, get consumers to try the product and believe the product, right? And that was a huge part of what we wanted to be. And that's why this ethos and that strategy has stayed consistent. When COVID hit, we lost it. We lost all the direct sale markets, farmers markets, craft shows. You know, I put them up here. We've got anything from Worthington and Dublin farmers market, but we run farmers markets now clear through Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana. We do over 500 markets a year now. We're planned out like 650 this year. It's our way to drive sampling and trial with the right consumer base for us. Our core consumer is the farmer's market person. We're a super premium product. We're a clean label product that fits that ethos. And so we'll stay with that. While we were doing that, we built the business around our retail centric focus. So now we're actually, this is dated because we launched now Meyer and pushed out a few things. So we're close to 800 retailers now across the Midwest. And then our online presence has grown a lot. Everybody always gloats about this one. And then I do about 25x the business in Sugar Wish that I do in Amazon. So we've found a bunch of other online retailers. Sugar Wish is an online gifting platform, you know, similar to any one of these ones, but it's a B2B oriented company, more corporate gifting centric, so on and so forth. So that industry through COVID has blown up. And so we've had to adapt and figure out that piece too. So the business has grown very nicely, but it's grown very sustainably. We've never tried to do like whole shot, huge growth. And a lot of that has to do with our manufacturing as well, because we make it all. So we can't quadruple overnight because we've got to make it, right? So we're building this thing brick by brick. I put this up just to show kind of where we're going manufacturing wise. So we moved into our new facility in Gahanna in 2019, and then we've been literally tacking on new filling equipment, new processing equipment as we've grown. This year is the big pivot point where we're gonna essentially 5x our capacity with new filling equipment going in, automation, and be able to maintain essentially our employee count while still growing that capacity. And that kind of leads me to this. When you manufacture like we have, we've now uncovered a new venture opportunity, right? Which is this, food waste, right? So we process over 8,000 pounds of produce a week at our facility now. And a lot of it, unfortunately, gets thrown away. And so whereas that's not the worst thing to put in a landfill, there's definitely a lot of waste that's going on in it. Sustainability, zero waste has been one of our challenges and one of our pushes since we started the organization. And it's really difficult as a small business because there's a lot of cost to it. And so our zero waste initiative started with glass return programs, reuse, not recycle programs. We've actually brought back in, repurposed, sterilized, stripped, and put back into service over 25,000 pounds of glass since we started the program in basically started COVID, so the beginning of COVID time. So we get glass back at farmers markets, we get glass back from our bar and restaurant partners, and it roughly equates to about 6 to 7 pallet loads of glass every month that we bring back in and put back into service. This piece of it has always been very challenging, right? Because the number one question we get is, why aren't you composting? Why aren't you getting composting together and things like that, right? And so the next evolution of that question for me, number one, it's expensive. Number two, it creates a huge infrastructural need. So we've been working with the city of Gahanna, where our facility is, to basically put in citywide composting so that we can facilitate to it. If you research composting right now, it's polarized. I could give you a 50-gallon trash can to be at your home that you can throw your banana peels and things like that into, and they'll collect it. And then it's commercialized, which actually the number one provider, does anybody know who the number one provider for composted materials are? Jails. They actually, like all that industry, all the food side of that, jails and schools collect up all the food waste and then they push it into composting centers. So they actually get what they need to kind of keep their things afloat. So it basically requires us to create the infrastructure for composting. So we started asking the question of like, well, what if it was not composting? What if it was actually putting something back into use that folks can do, similar to what our glass program is? So think of this as like jumping from recycling to reuse. We're jumping from composting to reuse, right? And so this new co, which I called Waste Not Processing Co. last night in a fit of rage, as we were like talking through it, is intended to do this. And we are doing this on a very small scale right now, but it's not our core focus. It's not our, it's most folks are gonna know if you're starting your business and as you're growing like we are, we're pretty busy just selling the mixers, right? So this piece is kind of an offshoot, an idea that we're making through. It's essentially taking this food waste where we're now at 8,000 pounds a week, but we're growing 50% year on year on that processing side of things. So you can see how big that becomes in the next few years. The composting infrastructure is not there. Even if we get the city of Gahanna on board, it's going to be 2 to 3 years before we can enact anything. And then there's a current gap in this kind of fresh food byproduct era, which I'll get to right now. And the opportunity, which is what we do right now, we vacuum seal a lot of like the food byproduct and we freeze it, is used in a bunch of industries. And so we currently sell it primarily to the distilling industry for things like limoncellos, limecellos, grapefruitcellos. That's how you make a lot of that hot steam, any kind of flavored whiskeys and things like that you see in market. They're either using natural flavors or they have a way to do it naturally using products like this. Brewing has gotten into it more, but the huge one in the essence category is cannabis. So as the cannabis industry has grown, vaping community has grown, not that I'm a part of any of that, they do use a lot of this byproduct, and there's a huge demand for it. And then in the culinary industry, so it's not just zest, it's not just citrus, it's, we process watermelons and ginger and blackberries, blueberries, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of use for what we already extract the juice out of it, but in the protein bar industry, in the catering industry, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of use cases for it. Like I said, food, CPG, culinary. So a lot of stuff actually in the local distilling scene, you'll see is some of it's coming from us already. Echo Spirits out in Grandview has a pineapple rum. We use all of our waste pineapple to create that product. Noble Cut Spirits out in Gahanna uses our stuff for all their cello lines. We actually are doing a blackberry collaboration with Echo Spirits right now on a blackberry vodka with our stuff. And so a lot of this stuff's coming out naturally as we speak. The other piece is with the quality standards at Simple Times, we do what's called peelless juicing, which basically means if you've ever been to Whole Foods, it splits the fruit in half, juices it, kicks the things out. It's amazing for the quality of the juice because the pith, the white part, doesn't add any bitterness to it. The oils from the peels don't get into your product. The downside is it only extracts about 60% of the juice out of the fruit. So in this, there's actually probably still about 15%, 20% juice in it. So I'm working on a machine right now that'll pull that out. And then we have second tier juice, which we won't use for Simple Times, but there's definitely a market for it. Because we're definitely beating the hell out of like Tropicana right at that point. So that's the point here, is look at those opportunities and figure out what we do with it. Because a lot of this, unfortunately, is just going to the landfill right now. And so this is what I kind of talked through here. Excuse all the fruit and juicing puns. We do this all the time at work. Even our 5 values are very fruit centric. But right now, this is the going market. Dehydrated, sometimes low quality. That's a major market piece for it, but still 27 bucks a pound. Over here is the fresh market, really good frozen items, 36 bucks a pound. So that one chunk I just showed you guys in my hand would go on the market right now for about 400 bucks. So that's what we're talking about. There's the void in the marketplace, right? Like nobody really does this because it's time consuming, it's difficult, you gotta set up processing for it. And this is primarily going to like high-end gourmet food providers, and they're skipping over, there's this like middle space where the distillers and folks like that don't do it. We've met with distillers across the country as we partner with them making their mixers. Hotel Tango in Indianapolis, for example, they make a limoncello. They shut their entire production down for a day, make their entire staff with hand peelers zest fruit. And so we literally like talk to them and they're like, man, if you could do this, you would save one day out of everybody's life. And by the way, they hate doing it, right? Like that's the piece that we always talk about in the food service industry too. If you've ever worked in food service, if you've ever been a bartender here, least favorite part about the shift was typically like fresh juicing at the end of the shift, and you're paying a bartender sometimes $19 to $21 an hour to juice lemons one by one. And so that's what we fixed in the cocktail world. Now we want to fix it for the distillers. So that's it.
Yeah.
I tried to go, I know I didn't go 6 minutes. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
That
What happened to the other? Oh, you got it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right. Can you hear me? I don't think I can hear.
Did you hear? Wait, did you turn it on?
So I can. All right, there we are. Awesome job. Questions, all right? We're gonna take a few minutes, grab a few questions from you guys.
Thanks, Mark. That was terrific. Very interesting. I guess I got like couple questions, and I'll ask them both. How many employees do you have right now?
We're about 29.
29.
We have actually 36 if you count like our market, what we call our market team that goes out and runs farmers markets and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's terrific. Tell me what makes Simple Times a workplace of choice. How are you keeping those people energized as energized as you are about the business and its purposes?
That's a fantastic question, and actually actually just had a conversation with this with Experience Columbus on the marketing of our company. It's a split answer. First off is we don't do a great job promoting how much we want to promote our employees. Mainly because it's been a choice in-house, because we're like, hey, sometimes it can come across as pandering and we're doing the right thing just for the wrong reasons and yada yada. First and foremost is a strong set of values. We really try to interview and base off of our values. We have 5 very core values to us. Relationship focus is a huge piece of us. We call it cultivate and nurture relationships. I told you we're food centric, right? And so that piece of it is super important to us. We go through our 5 values in the interview process. We make sure we're picking the right people, yada yada. Second is creating we're not a work from home environment. Like we are a manufacturing facility. So we've done a lot over COVID to ensure we implemented healthcare benefits in 2020, like middle of 2020, when we were like a month earlier talking about shutting down. So healthcare benefits, we have an open kitchen environment at our facility, free cold brew, treats, things like that. Keeping competitive with pay is obviously, a major need in the organization right now. So that's been a huge one. But the hiring practices is huge for us. Like we never really implemented an inclusivity and diversity side to our business. It just was always in what we were. And we're actually well north of 60% minority, LGBTQ plus in our organization. So I am probably the least diverse person in our organization. And the reality is that's come through happen circumstance, interviewing processes, and then just attracting the right people through networking. So a lot of our employees come through referral of our current employees, which has helped a lot as well. But it's a constant challenge, and it's actually one that we've had to adapt multiple times throughout COVID too as well, because we've had challenges where we went from work from home for our front office to back to work, right? And that had its challenges, and we had to kind of promote around that. But I think having the right people there and then having the right people pick the next generation of people has been the biggest benefit. Because it's different than it was when we were 3 people, that's for sure, yeah.
Hey Mark, so right quick, what do you need and how can we help you?
Yeah.
That's our last question.
That's
So wait on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, then since they're going to ask that question,
I actually have 2 more slides that ask that question.
We're waiting.
So yeah, okay, cool. So since they're going to ask that question, the other question I got for you then is why are you doing what you do? Like what got you into, I know you talked about being in the industry for 20 years and whatnot, but what is it, the core belief behind why you got into it? Did it come to you in a dream, or what was it for you that got you into the business?
I'll tell you, honestly, I just always loved creating, personally, right? So from the start of it was I knew I had to get to entrepreneurship eventually. And I was 5 years into doing this before I ever called myself an entrepreneur. I just figured I was just a guy out there trying to pay the bills, right? Like that was it. I just love creating stuff. I develop every recipe from scratch. We don't use food scientists. We don't do anything. I love seeing market opportunities and growing it. It was the biggest challenge I had in my corporate career. Actually, I hate to sound gloaty, but I had a really successful corporate career, and I hated it. And I worked for a beer company. People were like, the dream job. And I'm sitting there in New York City, and I'm like, I hate every time I brought up seltzers to Heineken when White Claw launched. And you know how frustrating that is to see a $3 billion industry create after you had brought it up in a meeting? That to me just pissed me off. And my boss said to me, if Truly's as successful as you say it's going to be, we'll buy them. And so that's when I basically turned my brain off of corporate America and went to entrepreneurship. So that kind of answers why I got into it. Simple Times fit everything that I hated about the spirits industry for me. Spirits industry was dog eat dog. You fight for everything. Everybody's a competitor. Nobody's a collaborator. I just like working with people. I like community, I like collaboration, and literally we're a mixer. We go with other things, right? So when this came up, and where I got the passion for this project was, everybody thinks that us local distillers, we're all competitors of each other. We literally, me, the owner of Middle West Spirits, Buckeye Vodka, all of us, like I'm going back to 2016 when Beer Fest was at Express Live, what's it now, Pemba Live? Express Live back then. And we would sit in a garage and batch cocktails, the four of us together. And that was like the only part of the job I liked. And so I finally turned to them and I said, if I do this for all of us, would you guys buy it? And that was it. And from that point forward, it just hasn't been like a look back. So sometimes it's just sitting in a room and just, you know, I hate to sound super cliche, but it's like when you need something and you see an opening in the space and you're passionate about it, go for it. That's exactly what happened to me. And I didn't believe it 7 years ago when people said that to me. Because I'm like, what am I waiting around for? I don't even have the product I want, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it hits you in the face and you're like, I gotta do this, right? And so, and then just not letting anything hold you back. Because I wasn't a food guy. Making spirits is easy, selling spirits is hard. But making spirits is easy. Making food products is hard. There's a little organization called the FDA, and you got to navigate around it. But if you're willing to learn it, I mean, like I said when I got into it, I go, if I knew how many challenges there were, maybe I would have been more challenged. But ignorance is bliss. So we just ran into challenges and then overcame them. But it's been like 20 different layers of training and how to process food, and we've grown to the size where now we're treated like the real food companies, right? So. Yeah, it's, you know, don't let that get in the way and keep fighting through it, but I don't know, hopefully that answers that question, yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of people that have questions. I know it's me, Colin, up here.
Yeah.
So we'll try to what time is it, Eric? Let's see, it's not on your phone. Well, okay, we have 6 minutes. Okay, so my question is, with your new venture, I like waste not processing. So what would make that different than, I guess, what already exists? You were explaining that there are already a system of like something is juiced and then passed on and passed on.
So there is infrastructure requirements, right? So the processing equipment is massively different, right? And so right now we're doing it very inefficiently because they're partners of us that we've like collaborate with. If you wanted to take this mass, we'd actually have to build out some upfront infrastructure for it. New zesting equipment and so on and so forth that are more efficient, that you can do with less people. All the way down to like, we ship nothing frozen right now. So the 3PL side of being able to ship frozen, so on and so forth. So it's an investment that we'd have to put forward to do.
But you would be the only like clean processing, or is that?
So it exists at an extremely expensive price. Yeah, I think the idea here is to be able to do it because our COGS are so low, because we already use the other side of it. You know, the idea would be to take advantage of this as and what I'm hoping to create, if we created this as a complete offshoot business, is this would be a revenue stream for Simple Times, right? We would sell that food waste to Waste Not, right? And then Waste Not would then convert that into profit. And so the idea is to make it mutually beneficial for the two. So when we're doing it right now, it's just to pad some extra numbers on stuff that we're already throwing away. But the reality is to do this right, you need a dedicated non-Simple Times team. There's too much competing priority in our current organization that we make way more pushing out the product that we currently make at the capacity constraints that we currently make, that I can't pull anybody off of that to process food waste. So you would have to actually invest in the infrastructure, and you'd have to put a dedicated team to it to do it the right way. And it's the same thing with our sales force. Like, we sell to those distilleries our product, and then we sell them this. So now there's this kind of like two-headed animal. Do you really want to be hard on selling these food byproducts, or do you want to be hard on selling the mixers? And when you're selling both products to them, there's somewhat of you're always going to be linked. And so you can't really decouple it and make a good market for both of them, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Easy one for you. I know you talked about the shelf life and all that kind of stuff. What about distribution? Do you guys do your own distribution, or do you have a third party, or how does that come into play? How's that work?
Yes, to all of it. We have probably one of the more interesting distribution footprint questions as we go through. So we self-distro to quite a few areas. We've actually got like 4 delivery trucks that are out and about doing things, mostly bar restaurant oriented, but everything like Columbus centric is typically us. And then we work with food distributors. So we work with one called Zidian up in Cleveland and Youngstown area that handles primarily all of our Giant Eagle business. We work with one called Ohio Foods that handles primarily all of our Kroger business. We self-distro to Whole Foods. So it's a real like different model. We have a total of 7 different distributors that work in either food or liquor. And so the other part for us is really difficult is food distributors don't go to liquor stores. Liquor distributors do a really shit job in grocery. And so we need kind of a 2-headed animal as it goes with that. Then we have our fulfillment center, which we own, and we do all of our online work out of. And so it gets really parceled up into that world where we drop ship for certain organizations like Sugar Wish, and then we sell our own product on our own website that goes out. And then we run a separate channel, which is all of our farmers markets and things like that, which is essentially kind of a quasi 1099 model where we have our own independent business owners going out and running these markets. So kind of a confusing answer to that question, but it's built out by kind of the channel that we go with.
What about getting those jars back?
That's primarily, 90% of our glass return right now is coming back from the bars and restaurants. And so that's where our delivery truck is there and literally doing an exchange, right? The other 10% is either people bringing it back to our store in Gahanna, consumers, or bringing it back to the actual farmers market facilities that we're in, and then getting it back to us, yeah.
I had 2 ideas. Whiskey is one of my favorite things in the world, and I go to all these distilleries and bought your product. But one of the things I didn't see on your list of potential markets is waste product. So like Lush, Buff City Soap, things like that, where they're making plant-based products.
Absolutely.
I imagine at that volume, they would be a really good market.
It's a great point.
So, and yeah, like it's not necessarily something that
Right.
and then you're probably familiar with these companies already, but I just kept thinking of Corsair Distillery as because the way they make their gin is like infusing.
Sure.
Yeah, so like that would be another
Absolutely.
possible, I would think, early partner that
Sure.
would be interested.
Yeah. No, it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're about wrapping it up, and our special question is always, what can we do?
Sure.
to help you?
So I actually threw 2 quick ones up there. One of them you jumped to already, which is great. I think on waste not, so there's kind of a 2-headed animal. And this actually came from a conversation with Cody, which then led me back to you guys and so on and so forth. I do firmly believe that we've got an amazing network in Columbus of entrepreneurs who don't know what they want to do yet, right? Like minded people that just don't know what they want to get into. So I do want open networking with folks that want to get into entrepreneurship, because I'm not going to run this. I'm not going to be the CEO of Waste Not. It's just not going to be something I have capacity to do. So I am looking for partners to run this business and build it out and figure out what to do with it. So I think that's the biggest, foremost one, is the networking / connecting with folks that want to get into the entrepreneurial world. 2 is any of the culinary or catering or distilling connections that we can continue to think. Beauty, I think, is an amazing recommendation as well. And then food producer network. That's one that we're pretty solid in because of the fact that I mentor a lot of people that are starting up food businesses now, because it just comes up a lot in our community at 1400 Food Labs. So it really is kind of these 3 things, for Waste Not. Shameless plug for Simple Times. If you want to follow an email, if you want to take a look at it, people ask us all the time, like, I buy your product, how can I help you, right? Realistically, where we are as a company now, believe it or not, it's the simple things, right? It's tell your friends about it. It's review it online. Like, you guys don't understand, I think, how big of an impact now online reviews are to sales within the organization. So popping on Google and adding a 5-star, or popping on our website and adding a 5-star, those things have monumental impacts to organizations. I mean, you'd be super. I've sat down with companies like Sprouts out on the West Coast, which is a major grocery chain, and they're like, "Wow, you got all 5-star reviews on Google," and you're like, "Well, shit, yeah, I guess that's great." I didn't know you guys looked at that stuff too, but anyway, that's a big one. And then, you know, any kind of things that we can work with you on. That's a QR code to join our email list and things like that. A big push for us on that, but that's more the shameless plug side. The networking side was really what I wanted to kind of present here today. So
Great work.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
Yes.
So if you need to go, you can go. Hey Steve, I didn't know you were here. That's one of our other organizers. So if you haven't met Steve, anyway. But feel free to mingle and chat after. I don't know how much time you have, but all right, okay. Get to do that official.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Appreciate it.
Great.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I've seen that, like, I've seen your logo before, so that's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's getting out there, getting out and about. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I didn't put it up on a slide, but I'm probably the easiest to get to by email.
Oh,
And it's just, my email is literally just Mark at simpletimes.com. So I'm super hidden. MARK, no C.
ARK.
Yeah. But if anybody needs to get a hold of me for anything, so.
So I know we're officially over. So
No, you can-
Yeah, no, shit.
So the other question that I had is more marketing oriented. So
Yeah.
You said your primary customer is that farmers market person. This is
No, you're all right. This is
that farmers market person, and you're looking to have a national footprint. So from a marketing standpoint, I'm trying to understand how do you take that particular persona and find that person across all these other markets where that type of personality is likely different in other markets.
Absolutely. Well, it is and it's not. I mean, obviously, like the cornerstone, we actually have it super defined down. We call it the social suburbanite, which is suburban markets, 30-ish miles, like concentric to city centers, and then affluency is obviously a piece of it. We're super premium in our market. Luckily for us, the grocers are kind of doing that. So if you look at the grocery industry as a whole, right, you have Giant Eagle, but you have Giant Eagle Market District.
Yes.
So look at where the Giant Eagle Market Districts are in a community like Columbus.
Yeah.
They're in Grandview, they're in Upper Arlington, they're in Dublin, and they just launched in New Albany.
Bexley too, right?
And they call it a market district marketplace or something like that. It's a mini one in Bexley. But Bexley's even a good example too, right? So shockingly, that follows our footprint, right? And that happens in every community. So then take Indianapolis, where are those same Whole Foods, market districts, Kroger marketplaces, so on and so forth. They're in Carmel, Westfield, so on and so. They literally mimic like what we are here. And so a lot of that is placement focused for us, and then how we merchandise in store. So merchandising at like an affluent level. So we don't do any like cardboard stand-up displays of case stacks, as they call them. Ours are like firm wood farmers market stands. If you've ever seen us in there, we spend a lot of money on them, but they cater to like exactly that person, right? And so we spend a lot of time and energy doing that. And then on the online side of it, a lot of our targeted ads and things like that we're going after is exactly that person. Our purchaser